This is Eric Teacup with Pure Vita Fitness. So we're here to talk about sleep and stress, two of the forgotten X factors in terms of complete wellness. And a lot of times we're so focused on strength, cardio, and nutrition that we forget about these two things. I've seen so many clients that we work with doing really well in the exercise and nutrition piece, but they're still not getting the results they want, or not seeing their body fat go down or the strength increase. And this is a lot of time where we need to look, is dealing with these two factors here. And a lot of times we as Americans tend to ignore these factors. So my goal here with this webinar is to bring you some awareness and help you to see how important these things are, and give you some tools of how do you manage these things in your daily lives. Because a lot of times, yeah, we all know we need more sleep and we need to reduce stress, but easier said than done. So with that going, we're going to go forward here and talk a little bit about sleep first. Most Americans are sleep deprived. It is a big deal. We don't get enough sleep. It is related to cardiovascular disease and obesity. Obesity primarily because of the endocrine problems that it happens is we get overweight from lack of sleep because of endocrine issues in our body. We're going to talk about that in terms of how does that work. Also, mental function, mood, cognition, recovery. We all know that fatigue makes cowards of us all. So when we're in a tired state, we're not emotionally not as stable. We're not going to be fun to be around. Most of us get pretty crabby when we haven't had enough sleep, and we know that. And it doesn't just happen as kids; it happens as adults too. And trying to be the best person you can be is one of the things we try to preach. And you can't be the best person you can be if you don't have enough sleep. And then cognition and memory, and just being able to function, and that creates a dangerous situation. These last kind of go hand in hand. They've linked a couple big disasters, the Exxon Valdez and the Space Shuttle Challenger that blew up back in the 80s, with sleep deprivation. And the latest studies show that 1 in 5 auto accidents is caused by lack of sleep. And so that's 1 million car accidents a year that are sleep-related in this country. So it is a big deal. And, cardiovascular disease, we talk about, how's that related to that? Diabetes is a big precursor to a lot of cardiovascular disease, and it also is strongly linked with being overweight or obese. And they actually took a group of 10 young healthy adults, and after 4 days of doing shift work, and they had these healthy young adults do shift work for 4 days, working overnight and not getting a good night's sleep, doing crazy shifts like a lot of people do, like nurses, doctors, and air traffic controllers, those type of professions. After day 4, 3 of these kids, these young adults, I shouldn't say kids, but were at pre-diabetic blood glucose levels. So basically they become insulin resistant in just 3 days of lack of sleep. That's pretty stunning. So sleep is very, very important. Even in terms of being able to function, they said, put it in this perspective, is if you don't have food for 14 days, you will die. If you don't have sleep for 10 days, you will die. So sleep actually ranks higher than food. And also, they also did another study with 17 to 19 hours of wakefulness. That is the equivalent of being at a 0.05% blood alcohol level. So legally drunk is 0.08%, but 0.05% is a little bit impaired, and it goes back to those accidents. So it does affect your body's ability to function optimally. It can put you in a very dangerous situation. And so we want to talk about the solutions here tonight, but what are the benefits of getting good sleep? Better endocrine function. So we mentioned that not getting good sleep can affect blood sugar and insulin, pre-diabetic levels. That's not good if our goal is to lose body fat and control weight. Also, 2 other hormones that are affected when I don't get enough sleep. My I'm full hormone, the hormone that tells my body I'm full, I'm satisfied, leptin actually will decrease. The other hormone that tells my body I'm hungry, ghrelin, will actually increase. So just figure it out. If I have less of the I'm full hormone and more of the I'm hungry hormone, what's going to happen? I'm going to be more prone to overeating. And so that's one of the ways endocrine function can be altered. Also, cortisol levels will go up. Cortisol is a stress hormone. And we get large amounts of stress hormone in our body. It's like basically putting sugar into our bloodstream because our body's in a constant stressed out fight or flight symptom. So it's putting sugar in there to deal with the fight or flight that it thinks it's in. And that's just like, drinking a can of pop or eating candy all the time. And it's really hard to burn fat that way. And it's also, cortisol will eat up muscle tissue, which is important for lean muscle mass. But having good night's sleep on the other end of that, especially when we get into those later stages of sleep later on in the night, will increase human growth hormone, which is a hormone that helps us maintain lean muscle or add lean muscle mass as well as burn body fat. and also testosterone. And typically testosterone is only associated with males, but females do have that too. And we all need testosterone, and those testosterone and growth hormone are anabolic hormones, meaning they help us grow and recover from exercise. And that's kind of goes hand in hand with number 4, improved recovery from stress. And exercise is a form of stress. Kind of skipping to number 4, because we're talking about that, is also when our body does most of its growth and repair is going to be at night, and more of our mental recharging of our brains. And so it's kind of like thinking about your brain being hooked up on the battery charger. And that's going to provide us with that number 2, that clear thinking, being focused. And thinking about working out, and I come from the workout regimen, so think about some of the things that we do in our fitness studio, some of the more technical things like squats, deadlifts, Olympic lifts, kettlebell swings. These require technique and focus. If you're not focused, you're setting yourself up for an injury, and you're not going to get the benefits from the workout that you want. Also, when we're not getting enough sleep, we decrease our ability. We obviously increase fatigue, which we start to rely more on energy drinks and excessive caffeine for energy. And, don't get me wrong, I love my Advocare Spark. I like to have a little bit of caffeine during the day, but when we're using excessive amounts, that can wreak havoc on our endocrine system in terms of the adrenal glands. And if you've ever had adrenal burnout or known somebody, what happens is you're just in a constant state of fatigue. So doing those artificial stimulants to try to keep our energy up, to try to compensate for lack of sleep, can really affect our body's endocrine system that way too as well, and create this horrible state of fatigue where we're tired all the time. And we need energy for our workouts. We need energy for our kids, obviously for our job. So I always talk about being the best person you can be. So, we talked about that earlier, but if you don't have energy, how can you put 100% into everything that you're doing? And so very, very important. There's also been studies that have shown a big link between getting enough sleep and decreased pain levels. Between sex life, 26% of the people that talk about their sex life not being good, is the reason why is they're too tired, and that's a big issue. And I'm not trying to teach the birds and the bees here, but we know as couples, that's an important part of a couple's maintaining a good intimate relationship, and that's way that people stay connected. So obviously fatigue and lower endocrine issues can affect that as well, and then improved immunity. Immunity is important too, and it's been shown in some studies to really be improved through good night's sleep. In fact, they took a group of 150 people and they monitored their sleep patterns for 2 weeks, and they exposed them to a cold virus. And the people that got 7 hours or less of sleep were 3 times more likely to get sick when exposed to that cold virus. So, think about sleep. It's just creating a bigger, stronger, it's like creating armor around your body to deal with things like stress and viruses and colds and things like that. So, the bottom line is you function better with sleep. So how do we get better sleep? So let's start looking at what we're doing. Are we drinking caffeine later in the day? Like I mentioned, I love my Advocare Spark. I know we have some coffee lovers out there. Just make sure you're done by 3 p.m. That's the time I like to use as the cutoff. If I let it go later than that, even if I'm very tolerant to caffeine like I am, chances are I'm not going to sleep good. And so avoid caffeine use later in the day. That's just kind of a no-brainer, any stimulant for that fact. Also turning off electronics. This is a big thing that people like to watch TV in bed, or they like to be on their iPhone, or they like to be on their iPad, or on the laptop, whatever it is. These things have been shown to stimulate your body too much, or your brain too much, and not in the wrong kind of way. You cannot relax and get the sleep that you need. So I would encourage you to turn that off. And the thing I actually recommend is doing 10 to 15 minutes of good reading a night. That's a great time to do your personal growth time. And read something that has some substance to it. And I guarantee 10 or 15 minutes of that, you're going to drop out. And studies have shown that actually, your brain actually retains that information better if you read it before going to bed. Alcohol is another one. Even though it is a depressant and people will get tired and sleep, the quality of sleep has been shown not to be effective, and you don't get into that realm, that deep sleep with alcohol. So, minimize alcohol. I know some people like to have a couple drinks, but if you're doing that chronically, you're going to be really affecting your body's ability to sleep. Not to mention your blood sugar and your endocrine system is going to be all screwed up, because alcohol is basically like putting sugar in your body. And that goes in with number 4, don't eat before bed. And, sometimes having a little bit of protein before bed isn't a bad thing because it stabilizes blood sugar, but having those carbs before bed, like the bowl of cereal or the bowl of ice cream, which usually has a lot of sugar and fat, what that'll do is it'll spike your blood sugar, and then when you go to sleep, it'll actually crash when you're asleep, and that'll disrupt your sleeping sleeping patterns. So not eating a big meal before bed is not a good idea as well in terms of quality of sleep. And sometimes you'll actually wake up and have what I call the food hangover, where you've eaten a lot of crap before bed, and it feels like just like you had that alcohol. They actually act very, very similar. The other thing is to create a calming ritual. A lot of times, you need to create an environment where you can sleep. So, maybe it's playing some soothing music. I know some of my friends have apps on their phone where they can create like waves coming up on the shore. I've downloaded some things from iTunes. It's relaxation, where somebody with a soothing voice kind of takes you to some exercise, gets you to kind of wind down and relax. The other thing I didn't put here too is magnesium is a great mineral that helps your body relax. And there's a supplement called the ZMA supplement. ZMA supplements contain magnesium, and in a higher dose. And magnesium gets typically burned off by stress, is the thing that burns magnesium out of your body. So a lot of magnesium, before bed can actually help you wind down. And the product we use with Advocare is nighttime recovery, but it's basically a ZMA supplement. Anybody tells you they've used ZMA, they can tell they sleep deep and they dream very vividly, which is good. If you're dreaming when you're sleeping at night and you don't remember your dreams, that probably tells you had a good night's sleep. So making sure we're creating that ritual. If it's light out, where we're at right now in Minnesota, it's coming into summer and we have longer days, so you have to pull the shade, create a dark environment, a calm environment, and just make sure that you're doing things similarly too, that you're not sleeping in too late on the weekend and getting up too early on the weekdays. That if you get your body too far out of a rhythm, that can affect your body's ability to get a good night's sleep too. So, if you're getting up at 4 in the morning during the week and staying out till 4 in the morning on the weekends, probably not a good thing in terms of creating a nice rhythm. Your body likes to be in a rhythm. So we're going to move ahead to stress. Stress is a big issue because it causes 60% of illnesses and disease, according to the American Institute of Stress, and 3/4 of the doctor's visits are related to stress-related ailments. And this is kind of telling, if you look at this fact, is how much it increases heart disease, stroke, and heart attack. 25 to 50% increased chance of having issues with your cardiovascular system, which we know is the #1 killer in this country. And then we go back to 40% of stressed Americans overeat. Why is that? Well, because typically if we're stressed, a lot of times we're not sleeping, but we're also driving up that hormone cortisol, the stress hormone. We're in constant fight or flight. We're rushing to this, rushing to that, trying to get this done, trying to make this deadline. And our body thinks we're constantly either in a flight or fight. And what cortisol does is it pulls sugar from the body and dumps it into the bloodstream, so you have immediate energy to deal with that fight or flight response. But we can't stay there forever. If we stay there forever, we're going to risk, when we talked about adrenal burnout, we're also going to create this environment where we're always hungry, we're always tired, and we typically are going to crave a lot of sweets, and we're going to gain a lot of weight around the middle. So we're putting our that cortisol in our system, which is going to drive up blood sugar, and that's going to spike insulin, which is going to create an unstable blood sugar environment, which is going to put us in fat storing 24/7. So we got to deal with our stress. We got to be realistic with it. And so there's some stress management things you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. And I think the #1 thing we got to look at as Americans is better time management. We typically overschedule ourselves. We don't leave ourselves any buffer time in between. And I like buffer time. When I put my schedule together, buffer time is where I can get things done that I didn't get done on the blocked off time that I put it in. So, important thing is to block time for the things that really matter first. And a great book, if you're really looking at time management, is First Things First by Stephen Covey. It talks about the important things in life and blocking those off. They use an analogy of his professor. And he gets up in front of the classroom and he has a big jar, and he dumps a bunch of big rocks into the jar, and then he asks the students, he says, "Is there any more room in the jar?" And they say, "No, there's not." So then he takes some gravel and dumps it in there, a little bit smaller rocks, but there's some gravel, and he dumps it in there. And then he asks the students, he says, "Is there any more room in the jar?" And he said, "No." They said, "No, there's not." So then he takes some sand and he dumps it in the jar, and there's still room for the sand. And what he said, when the students are kind of looking at him like, "What the heck are you doing?" And he explained it to him. He says, the big rocks represent the important things in life: spending time with family, exercise, spiritual time, those type of things. The gravel, represents the things that need to get done. Bills need to be paid. You need to go grocery shopping and, put food on the table, cook food for the family, get the kids their activities. And the sand represents the busy work, running to the laundry, the dry cleaning, maybe running this and that errand, and maybe spending time on Facebook could be in there too. But he says, okay, what if I take the jar and empty it out and I fill it with the sand first? And if you fill it with the sand, if you take this visual, there isn't room for the big rocks in there if you fill it with the sand. And that's typically what we do as Americans, is we fill ourselves with busy work, and by the time we get actually find time, or if there is any time for the big rocks in our lives, we don't have any room left in the day. So put those things first. I know personally I like to do my exercise in the morning, but before I do my exercise, I do my spiritual and mental sharpening in the morning. So I get those two big rocks out of the way in the morning, and that really makes a difference. When I don't do that, boy, I can tell a big difference in my mood and my overall function for the day. My stress level is much, much higher. So having a plan is important. Block time for the important things. Block in buffer time so that you can catch up on things that you didn't get done earlier. Just plan for that, and give yourself some room between activities. If you're always running from thing to thing to thing, you're in fight or flight. Your chances are going to be jacking up your cortisol levels. And then counter to that is we have the calming activities. Scheduling those things in. Maybe it's it's taking a hot bath. Maybe it's massage. Maybe it's yoga or meditation, something like that helps you kind of calm down and gets you down into a more mellow state where you need to be. I mentioned some on the sleep is having those relaxation things that you can listen to during the day. Maybe it's taking a nap. Whatever it is, find things that can calm you down and then help you check out for a while and recharge. If you're always in that fight or flight, I'm just going to say it's just going to be really, really hard to get the results that you want. And that kind of goes with number 3 too, is learn to say no. We have such a hard time in this society. We think we got to be everything to everybody, and especially as parents, we think we got to do everything for our kids and have them in every activity. But if we don't say no, we overextend ourselves, and we do a lot of things. We don't do any of them well because we get so tired. We get overextended, and we can never remember which ends up. And it's kind of like the oxygen mask coming down in the airplane. And so if we don't take care of ourselves first, it's going to be really hard to take care of those other people in our lives that we care about, because we only have so much finite energy and strength. And if we zap that out, we're going to be worthless. And a lot of times that ends up being crabby, stressed out, inattentive, and not being present. So learn to say no, and stay away from people, places, and things that stress you out too. And a good example of this is my wife was involved with an activity with my daughter that she really wasn't getting much out of it. Just seemed like everything she said was negative, and about one of the people that she worked with there was always negative, and that person drove her crazy. And really she felt like, we're really not getting a lot out of this thing. And I told her, it's maybe time to prune that branch. And there are things in our lives, maybe things we do that really just take energy versus give us energy. I know volunteering really gives me energy, and that's important, and that gives you energy. I mean, who doesn't like doing something nice for somebody? But then there's other things maybe where we volunteer, and it's really just nothing's really being accomplished there, or we're in some kind of organization where nothing really positive's coming out of it. It's just taken away from us. Or, a good friend of mine just was deciding she's going to close her personal training studio because she was working too many hours and wasn't having time for those big rocks. One of those big rocks was her family. And she was just working too many hours being a business owner, didn't have the employees to support the clients she had. And she just learned to say no, and she learned to just take that out of her life. And she's just going to go back to being a trainer and working out of a different facility where she can just work on that piece as well. So it might mean scaling some things back, adjusting your schedule, and getting rid of things that are just overloading you. And maybe it's something you do enjoy. Maybe it's a job or something like that. But it's taken away from things that are more important than that in life. And number 5, take control of your environment. That kind of goes with the sleep we talked about. Is work on creating an environment home that you can come home to. Who likes to come home to a messy, chaotic house? Not too many people I know. So, make sure you're creating some type of organization, some type of order in your house. I know most people like some order. We don't all have to be OCD to know that, but there's something about coming home to a clean, ordered house versus always coming home to chaos. A soothing environment, a supportive environment. Just think about, I'll use an example of a gym. Going to a gym where everybody's kind of looking down on you, or it's intimidating. And I get this all the time in our training studio, is people belong to a big box gym and it's intimidating, it's overwhelming, it's stressful. And, they just don't do very well there. They just feel a lot of anxiety, and they come to a smaller studio like ours and they feel more at home and more like people know you. They don't feel like they're on display, and they don't feel as overwhelmed. That's one environment. That's one thing about having the right environment. Also, I think about, has that changed changes with age. When I was younger, in my 20s, I liked the big, crazy nightclubs downtown Minneapolis, and I'd go down to that, and I thrived on that. I wanted to be around people, and I wanted to be out socializing because I was a single guy in my 20s. But as I got older, and I have a family now, and I have more demands, now I'm more like, I just like to have bonfires in my backyard with the neighbors, or I like, if I go out, I like to go to quieter places where I can have real conversation. And that changes with age, and realize that we have introverts and extroverts in our society. Introverts don't necessarily not like to be around people, but they get recharged from being by themselves, having downtime alone. And it doesn't mean they don't deal well with people, but that's how they get recharged. And extroverts, they like to be around people. So maybe that extrovert would like that big, noisy club downtown Minneapolis, and that might be something that does refresh and recharge them. So we're all different. Just understand that, but recognize the things in your lives that are taken versus giving you energy, and prune those branches if you need to. And then express your feelings versus bottle them up. A lot of times we hold in anger and resentment, and then we explode on somebody. We bottle it up, and it's just like a bomb waiting to go off. And that's not a good thing either, is, being assertive. Tell people how you feel. Always let them know where you stand. You don't have to be a jerk, but you can always let people know where you stand. And people will respect that. Too often, I think, in our political correct society, we're so afraid of offending somebody when, typically people will respect somebody. They might not agree with them, but they'll respect somebody, and speak up for yourself. Because if you're always feeling like you're getting taken advantage, you're feeling like a victim, or you're feeling like you're putting yourself out, but you hold that in, eventually it's going to well up. And so I think it's important to be honest and upfront with people, and it saves you a lot of stress down the road. And then also number 7, being willing to forgive. And most people know I'm a strong faith. I'm a Christian guy, and the foundation of the Christian religion is forgiveness. We believe that Jesus Christ forgave us, but we need to forgive others. And so forgiving somebody is releasing yourself from that burden, whether it's somebody, an ex-spouse or an ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, or somebody maybe who screwed you out of money. Whatever it is, you need to let that go. You can't carry that around with them. You're not hurting that person by being mad at them. So learn to forgive those things, and forgive yourself too. And a lot of people can't forgive themselves. And I know none of us are perfect, and once we all realize that, and we start forgiving each other, man, the walls come down. And sometimes that's the biggest thing I think people have a problem with, is not forgiving themselves or others, and that's where they're really stuck. I know I have a good friend who cannot lose weight, who's gained and lost 100 pounds, and struggles, and one of the big problems with that person is that they are not forgiving a certain family member of theirs, and they have a lot of anger and resentment towards them, and it's not helping them lose weight. And you can see it. It's plain as day, but they can't see it. And they've been to multiple counselors that told them the same thing, and they just can't let that thing go. And it's sad to see that this person has a lot to offer, but they can't forgive other people. The last one's kind of fun. Sense of humor, learning to laugh. Laughter stimulates good brain chemicals in the body. Those good brain chemicals make you feel that they reduce stress. I think about dopamine and serotonin, those feel-good chemicals in your body. Exercise is one way to stimulate it, so is laughter. So don't take life too seriously. I know one of the things we just did today, I go to another gym to work out because, I don't want to work out where I work because I'm competing with my clients, trainers for equipment. Plus, I go to a gym that suits my personality versus my clients. And we have a big group of guys there, and we have a lot of fun. And, I brought the thigh master in there and planted it in there, and it was a lot of fun because it showed up on Facebook and all the comments, and it made for a good laugh. And I had a really busy day today before I did this webinar, and having a good laugh, just really it's just refreshing. And so have a sense of humor, find things that make you laugh, be around people that can make you laugh, because I think sometimes we take ourselves too seriously, and that's no way to go through life. And so these are just some basic stress management things. I'm not going to say I have it all together, but I will say this, is if you have some questions on time management, I do have some tools that I use and some resources. So if you want to learn more about that, some things I've learned to do, because I've had some great business coaches and mentors on this, I'd be more than happy to share it to you. So reach out to us if you have more questions on this, but hopefully that you got some things out of this, and pay attention to your stress levels and your sleep. Work on these as well as you work on your exercise stuff and your eating. It's a process, and it's not going to be great, but like I say, fitness is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and so is wellness. You might have weeks where you sleep great, and you might have other weeks where all of a sudden, you're burning at both ends, but make sure you always get back to that 2 steps forward. A couple sources here, I'm going to just show you. WebMD is a great source of information. BetterSleep.org, American Institute of Stress. These are some great websites, and a few of these readings that I use to put this thing together. But as always, if you have more questions, reach out to us. We're here to help. And that's it for this webinar. That's a wrap. Please email or call us or talk to us on our Facebook page if you have more questions. Thanks.